Well, for more on this, we're joined by Khaled Elgindy. He's a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute. Welcome to TRT World. Khaled, what do you make of the fact that in the last hour, 5 rockets were launched from the Gaza Strip towards Israel? Could this be, is there a risk of fighting on a new front?
It's certainly possible. I think it is concerning, certainly, but it's not terribly surprising after the sort of the scale of the Israeli military assault on Jenin refugee camp that we saw over the last 2 days. I think clearly, I think most everyone who understands the situation on the ground was expecting there would be some Palestinian response. Especially when you have 12 Palestinians killed over the course of 2 days, and massive destruction, in addition to the thousands who were forced to flee. It is an escalation that almost demands a response of some sort, and that's what we saw today from Gaza.
And Khaled, what was Israel's goal in these 2 days in its so-called operation in the refugee camp, and what has it achieved?
Well, I think Israel's goal overall, I mean, of course, officially they say that they are trying to defeat terrorists, but Israel has a very, very broad definition of terrorism that includes even human rights defenders and civil society groups. And certainly anyone who operates in an armed fashion against Israel, whether it's against civilians or the army, is also considered to be a terrorist. I think the reality is that we've seen over the past year and a half a Palestinian rebellion, an armed rebellion in many cases that has been going on. And this is an attempt by the Israeli army to crush that rebellion once and for all. It has been concentrated in the northern West Bank, in Jenin, and occasionally also in Nablus. But Jenin seems to be the epicenter of that rebellion. And then I think this latest Israeli assault is intended to send a message that they intend to crush it.
And you're speaking to us from Washington, Khaled, and you've also written a book called Blind Spot: America and the Palestinians from Balfour to Trump. If you were writing the sequel, Balfour to Biden, how would you describe right now the current U.S. administration's attitude and response to what's happened in Jenin?
Well, it certainly is a continuation of that same blind spot, and in some ways even more than previous U.S. administrations. You know, it's no surprise every U.S. administration has a particular blind spot when it comes to Israel and the Palestinians. It's a matter of domestic politics. It's a matter of nostalgia and personal sentiment, fondness for the Jewish state. But I think what we're seeing in the past 2 U.S. administrations with Donald Trump and Joe Biden is a deepening of that blind spot, where there is even less concern, I think, for a political process and in some cases even for Palestinian suffering. In the past, we've seen a much more active role, particularly when there is a crisis, than what we've seen from the Biden administration. I think they simply don't consider this a priority. And as long as the costs of the status quo are borne primarily by Palestinians, then they are, I think, content to take a very hands-off role. Of course, the United States is not a bystander. The United States actively supports Israel militarily with $3.8 billion a year. The only thing that it is not doing is actively seeking a political resolution, which in the past it has done.
And just very briefly, why has this blind spot, as you call it, deepened?
Well, I think there's a fatigue with the issue in Washington, in both parties, frankly. I think also in the region, people have grown tired of the issue. It seems intractable. It's very difficult to solve. I think also the fact that Israeli governments have become more extreme over the years has made a political resolution even more difficult. And so it's much easier to simply wash your hands of it because trying to resolve the issue requires a significant political commitment, both in diplomatic terms, but also in terms of domestic politics. And that's not something that this administration is interested in expending political capital on.
Khaled Elgindy, thank you so much for joining us today. Really great to get your analysis. Speaking to us live there from Washington, D.C. Thank you.